Fellow Ambazonians, this is Dr. Cho Ayaba. It was brought to my attention this morning a certain interview made by John Fru Ndi, John Fru Ndi, the chairman of the Social Democratic Front, lamenting about his experience in an Ambazonian camp and supposed solutions that he proposed. I don't know, he spent a few days in that camp. And you could hear him complaining and mourning. You could hear Pa John Fru Ndi complaining and mourning for spending a few days in an Ambazonian camp. Let me remind Pa John Fru Ndi that in Yaoundé, Ambazonians are detained. They have no clean water. They have no benches to sit. They have no mattresses to lie on. Some are handcuffed to die. Some are handcuffed to die. Like Ambe, who died the other day, was poisoned. He bled and died. It is so shameful that a man whom the same regime that he is apologizing for locked him up in his home in 1992 for more than 60 days. I was sitting outside his home for the entire 60 days. Every day, I left our own compound and walked to guard him to make sure he was not transported to Yaoundé. We slept out for 60 days to guard him. There is a small hall in Samukum Hall. Sometimes it was so rough down his compound. We went at Samukum there and stayed the night. Let me remind him, I, Dr. Cho Ayaba, I was the man that initiated the felling of trees to block the roads. At Samukum one night about 2 a.m., when we started getting information that they will be bringing dogs from Yaoundé, there were so many theories being put out there about how John Fru Ndi will be taken from his compound. And I said to a couple of persons with whom we were at Samukum, why don't we bring down some trees? We had nothing. And I went outside, I tried to push down a small tree. And that's how we initiated that process. One night I was nearly killed with my cousin near Unity Hotel, where we started digging trenches. And they threw a grenade in the middle of the night at us. Mr. John Fru Ndi, let me remind you, during that time when you were detained by this same regime that you are now apologizing for, the entire state, the Savannah state, was under a state of emergency. People could not go anywhere. Harassment, torture was rampant. You spend 2 days. The other Nyamfuka, he said he spent 4 days in an amber camp in the Atlantic, and people were smoking that their thing. Let me also tell you people, the Senate Majority Leader of the United States is introducing a bill in the Senate for the legalization of marijuana. That contraption and conception that you people still have, like you are in the days of the Neanderthal, as though marijuana is some archaic stuff from the moon. More than 25 states in the United States have legalized it. It's a medicinal plant, except abused. Where you people are crying for spending 4 days, 3 days, your great-grandchildren, Mr. John Fru Ndi, have been in there for 5 years in the defense of the land that you people sold, that you people did not have the balls to stand for. I speak for these children. Tell whoever is listening to extradite me to Yaoundé. Tell whoever, you know me, Pa John Fru Ndi. You and myself have sat in Tarenkonde to plan strategies. So if you listen to this message, it's Dr. Cho Ayaba talking. Let me remind you that I left from your compound to Yaoundé with a five-man team to burn down the printing press in 1997. You recall? I met your late Secretary General, Asongani, at Ideal Park Hotel. I picked up an envelope, 150,000, and I moved men to Yaoundé. On that same day, you were traveling to Yaoundé for a press conference. You recall? Do you recall, if you are listening to this, that I had a meeting in Mimi Hotel with Lake Twenko and your SDF Center Province Provincial Coordinator, the man from the north, Sani Alaji, somebody like that, and that you destroyed the operation because you were afraid that it should not take place while you were in Yaoundé. Do you recall our meeting in 2004 in your office after I had brought down the Mongo Bridge when you asked me to bring down the Sanaga Bridge? You recall? John Fru Ndi, do you recall? Let me tell you why these children are in the bush. Because another country invaded our own and took us as slaves. That you could win an election and it could not be certified because you are an Ambazonian. That during the period of annexation, they've subjected us to slavery, economic deprivation. You were lucky to be in the hospital and have medication. There are millions of our people that do not have access to hospital. They don't have the monies to buy medication. These children are in the bushes because their land has been occupied by an alien system that has instituted policies that have completely eliminated any chance of an Ambazonian succeeding, whether in the economic realm, the political realm. Let me remind you that through the complicity between Yaoundé and Abuja, there are dozens of Ambazonians that were moved, including Panfo, your former chair, man of the Constitutional Affairs Committee, the same people who drafted the constitutional proposal that was adopted in your convention in Bafoussam, asking for a four-state federation. Was that given? Panfo was moved, was extradited. He's been subjected to torture, psychological and physical. He's been deprived of his liberty for so long. That is what you are requiring the international community to do to the same people who are standing up for the same land and the same opportunities that so many millions have been denied of. Did you just hear that the United States has granted Ambazonians the right to remain in the United States to get protection? Have you read about the TPS? Do you know the basis upon which such laws are made? Do you know the international law principles that inform such legislations? You heard of the 1951 Geneva Convention? And in its Article 3, the principle of non-refoulement, or Article 1, principle of non-refoulement, you shall not send back people to a place where they can be subjected to torture. Have you read the premise of the TPS, citing the war that is going on in our country? How many people have the Ambazonian soldiers beheaded who are non-combatants? How many murders? Let me tell you how many Ambazonian mothers have been killed, beheaded. Sam Sawyer was beheaded. Mami Api was burnt in her home. More than 1,000 villages have been burned down. Have you asked for Bia to be taken to the ICC to be tried for war crimes? More than 50 massacres consistent with the spirit of the definition of the crime of genocide as formulated by the 1948 Geneva Genocide Convention. Massacres that can be prosecuted as crimes against humanity and crimes of genocide because of their intent to wipe us out wholly or partially so they can occupy our land. Have you called for these same people to be prosecuted? You gave Ambazonian soldiers an interview, Mr. John Fru Ndi, where you propose solutions. Why didn't you tell us about the solutions you gave them? Was it the creation of reconciliation committees as has been going on in Yaoundé? Was it one of them? Was it the special status? Maybe you would like to tell us how deep the implementation of the special status has gone. Is it the 4-state federation that your Bafoussam Convention adopted that you gave them? Give me one solution that you gave these men carrying guns in the jungle, fighting to defend their homeland, that you as a free man, the leader of a political party, you have been able to propose, and it has been adopted. At the beginning of your interview, you just complained how the SDF has been left alone. And you think if the SDF as a political party operating under the colonial system has been abandoned in trying to find a solution to the issue of annexation, and you think those children whom the other person called have not seen the 4 walls of a classroom are the ones who can take that solution and make it happen. Tell me what, don't forget, the accusation and lamentations of those who hated you, Mr. John Fru Ndi, was that you were simply a book seller. You ran a bookshop. Nobody thought about your courage. Nobody thought about your charisma. Nobody thought about your conviction. We live in a society where the real attributes that are necessary for freedom are relegated. And they are talking about 4 walls of classrooms where stereotype, indoctrination, and colonial curriculum of education are intoxicated in people. And what is the outcome? The millions who are moving across oceans where that particular education has virtually no relevance. The people who haven't seen 4 walls of a classroom are the daredevils who have been able to humble an annexationist regime for the past 5 years, who have made most of you escape the land, who have made you intellectuals being incapable, to stand up for anything. They are the same children who are turning Dane guns into assault rifles, who are making rockets, IEDs, without seeing the 4 walls of classrooms. And shouldn't that be able to remind you that these classrooms that you people are talking of have been irrelevant as far as peace, stability, and opportunity for the Ambazonian people is concerned? Our forces are trained. They are asked to adhere to their code of conduct, consistent with the spirit of international humanitarian law and human rights law. Are there infractions that happen Yes, they happen in all wars, as you see in Ukraine. Are they acceptable? No. But the Ambazonian forces, all of them, have not committed any systematic crime that meets the minimum threshold that can be referred anywhere, that can even be tried in any court in the annexationist regime. Those who commit crimes that we think violate their code of conduct, we hold them accountable to the extent to which our institutions under a war situation can take care of. We speak for these forces. By John Fru Ndi, we are born slaves. We are all in jail. You see, exile, hundreds of years ago, real punishment was throwing people into exile. The king of Norway, when Germany invaded, went into exile in London. The king of Ethiopia, when the Italians were about to overrun Addis Ababa, went into exile. Deliberately sent into exile as a punishment. Exile is punishment. Exile is punishment. All Ambazonians living out here in exile are on punishment. They struggle time and again to find their way home to freedom. Land taken over through you people, your complicity with this regime. You legitimize it. Brave men and women walked out of the Eastern House of Assembly of Nigeria and set up shop in Boya. We've asked you to move those limited men that you've used there to legitimize occupation and annexation, so that we can emulate the example of our forebears who walk out of Nigeria. You haven't got the guts because of the political corruption, the financial opportunities that you people have reaped using the name of Ambazonians. There are still Ambazonians out there whose limbs and legs were chopped by grenade. There are still Ambazonians who never recovered for 9 months of punishing ghost towns that you instituted. 9 months of punishing ghost towns. They've never recovered. The Ambazonians whose homes were burnt because they rose up to the call you made. You cannot speak for them today. They should be extradited. And the same punitive regime that kept you in detention, that nearly murdered you in Yaoundé with water cannons. In Bafoussam, the same. That chopped the arms and limbs of our own children. The Foshives who murdered a lot of people. You've never asked for them to be tried by the ICC. You've never asked for them to be arrested. You want the children who have been exiled because of the punitive measures of the regime. You want us sitting out here to be silent so you people can manipulate those children because you are in bed with the devil using political liberalization, which was brought about by the daring spirit of millions of people that you call onto the street. We will arrest you again, and we will hold you accountable for these words that enable and fuel the regime that is committing genocide in our land. No state, including the ones you are calling to extradite us, have allowed men like you in their greatest moment of peril to make such statements and go free. No state. The British would have arrested you. The Americans would have arrested you during the War of Liberation. The British would have arrested you if you were conniving with Adolf Hitler for the bombing of their country. Their former king was excommunicated for providing intelligence and report in 1936 to the Hitler regime. Ambazonians are not doing what has not been done by other states. All colonial apologies, genocide denials, are still being subjected. Those who deny the Holocaust denial has been criminalized. We are talking about opinions. Whether there was the killing of millions of Jews between 1939 and 1945, and millions of others, gypsies and others. Denial has been criminalized. That is the extent to which the civilized world is willing to go to uphold the truth. My fellow Ambazonians, you are doing well under the circumstances. You are fighting an atrocious regime that has burned down your villages, that has thousands and thousands of enablers within our land that are enabling its policies and are using propaganda to try to make you look like, you are functioning during the classical times. You are the children opening community schools. You are the children that are taking care of our mothers. You are the people defending our independence, our territorial integrity against a barbarous regime that has installed itself illegally. You are upholding the spirit of the premise of Article 20, paragraph 1 to 4 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and different international law principles that gives you the right, including the UN Charter, to defend yourself in the face of aggression, that criminalizes occupation, that criminalizes colonialism. You are the generation defending it. And let no one lecture you. Let those who cannot speak, who cannot stand up, who cannot send their own children to defend the freedom they want to enjoy, to lecture you. You don't need classrooms to become soldiers. You don't need classrooms to become intellectual. The greatest legend of our time has been General Ivo. I don't know to what level he went to, what level of colonial education he had. He spoke to the mindset of our people. He reflected our dreams and aspirations. He gave his own liberty, his own life for his country. All enablers are put on notice. When genocide was occurring in Rwanda, brave church leaders rose up, opened their doors. They spoke against it. When the Nazis attacked Poland, brave church leaders rose up. In different countries, church leaders have stood up. Civil society organizers have stood up in the defense of a people. Do you have a right to criticize us? Yes, you have a right to criticize us. But do that based on the truth. If you were in an Ambazonian camp and you were not maltreated, how do you speak for those you claim were maltreated? Speak about yourself. You were even given a bench. You even hear in other camps when people are arrested, they are given mattresses. Thousands of Ambazonians, about 3,000 or more, scattered in the jails of La Republique. We have to pay for them to have mattresses to sleep on, decent food, for their health bills. You were treated humanely and you were released. BBC Mancho might never see freedom. Pound 4 might not if we surrender. But because we will not surrender, they will not only see freedom, they will trade places with people like you. God bless Ambazonia.